Welcome to the Strong and Healthy After 40 podcast. We are discussing topics and practical strategies for women over 40 to optimize fitness, hormones, and metabolism. I'm Dr. Sara Whatley, family medicine physician with an integrative approach to whole person care.
And I'm John Agbelusi, your strength coach with over 25 years of experience as a certified fitness professional helping women over 40. Today, Sara, we're going to be talking about really the protein conversation that women over 40 need to hear. And when I'm working with a client, a woman over 40, one of the biggest gaps I see consistently for women over 40 is they're just simply not getting enough protein in their diet.
Guilty.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the challenges, some of the reasons why getting enough protein is so important. Some of the, we'll also talk about some tips and tricks that women can use to get more protein. But let's talk about maybe the challenges that some women have getting enough protein in first.
Sure. Well, and I'm glad we're talking about this because it is a popular topic right now. And protein, we're always talking about it. But let's make it really specific and applicable for women over 40. What does that mean? How much protein do I need to be getting, and when and why? And so, to your point, some of the challenges, one is habits. We're used to eating what we're used to, as all humans.
Yeah.
So one thing is just understanding what are we eating, maybe a food log, or kind of understanding, am I getting enough protein to start with? And if I'm not, how can I start practicing getting more of that? Because we're busy.
Yeah.
A lot of women in their 40s are still in the middle of building careers and raising children and, helping other older family members. And so the thought of changing our food can be really exhausting. So if we can break it down to something more achievable, that's helpful.
Yeah.
So one, understanding how much protein does a woman over 40 need to eat?
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up some of the challenges that women are having with getting enough protein in. It is definitely a popular topic. I mean, I can't tell you how many new products are hitting the market that are focused on protein. I saw protein popcorn, protein pretzels, protein coffee. All these companies are really jumping on the protein bandwagon because, obviously there's a gap, and it does show a big gap. And especially for women, I think to your point, the busyness of the day can kind of start crowding out the ability to get protein in, and that's huge. Habits are huge. I can't tell you how many women over 40 when I'm doing that initial interview, I'm kind of asking about nutrition, like what do you eat for breakfast? And they'll talk about a traditional breakfast, which is oatmeal or toast or something that has no protein in. So it's like kind of starting the day in a deficit already. And so that again kind of compounds the challenges of getting enough protein in throughout the day.
And there's a little science to it also, right? Don't just eat protein. We want to eat enough protein for our body to sustain our goals, to sustain our energy, to keep our blood sugars stable, and to also support our muscle mass.
Yeah.
So what should be the focus? Like what's the equation?
Yeah. So lots of different studies on how much protein to get in. One of the keys, and I think the easiest to remember, which is good, is, if women can really focus on getting about a gram of protein per pound of weight, right? So that's a kind of a easy way to remember how much protein to get in. Some studies say less is fine, like 0.7 grams per pound is good too. But it's okay to do a little bit more, right? And for most women, it's not going to cause any issues to get that gram per pound in per day. And so that's a really good topic. Is that kind of what you talk to your patients about?
Absolutely. Yeah. One, I like that it's easy. Okay, 1 gram per pound. Okay, can kind of wrap my head around it. And to your point, there might be some other little caveats to that. The important thing is just practicing that. Okay, now I know how much I should be getting through the day. How can I start working toward that? And then you'll know, okay, is this too much for me? I'm too full. I'm not feeling great. But just practicing that to start with with, because that's the basics. That's the base for supporting what our goals are. And then also recognizing that if we are starting to strength train and exercise, we have a higher protein need.
Yeah.
Hormones are shifting, so we have a higher protein need. And then there might be some stressors going on for women over 40. And what does stress do? Cortisol goes up. It steals everything that you're taking in your body to make more cortisol. That includes protein. And so practicing, even if it feels like a lot, like that is a lot of protein. Oh my gosh, that's a lot of grams per day. We might need that, and we might feel a lot better if we're actually fueling our body with it.
Yeah. That's a huge point. And I think you brought up a lot right now. And something I just kind of want to go back to is the psychology of the understanding and the tracking, right? And so it's really interesting when I have a client start tracking their protein and being aware of it. Of one is it increases the awareness of how much they actually need. It's like, okay, my goal is, I want to get 140 grams of protein in, right? And then they start tracking and they're like, well, I'm nowhere close to that, right? And so it's just kind of understanding, okay, now we're really starting to identify, why are you seeing some of the symptoms that you're describing? And we're seeing like you're getting 40 grams of protein in over the course of the day, and you need 140 grams of protein, right? So the awareness is key, right? And the awareness is, to a certain extent, I think one of the big eye openers is, that the aha moment of like, this is my needs, and I'm really not serving the needs of my body, and that's key, and that's a big first step. And then there is a scientific principle that says nothing improves unless you track it. Right. And so just the awareness of saying, hey, I'm at 40 grams now I can actually start really improving and working on this. So now maybe they're not getting to that 150 gram goal every day, but they're so much closer.
Just practicing it. And there's so much information these days about food and nutrition and dieting, and you should eat this way and you should eat that way. And I think breaking it down and like, let's just focus on one category, then it doesn't matter if you're paleo or keto or whole food plant-based. Let's just focus on the protein and getting more of that in, and then we can get a little more niche on some of those other categories. What are your thoughts on different sources or different types of protein? Like, I'm really busy, so should I just maybe have like 3 protein shakes a day?
You could. There's going to be some adverse side effects to that for sure, which we won't go into right now. But it is important to try to get there as best as possible. I am a fan of like protein powders in their place, right? We want to kind of keep them in the right place. We don't want to go overboard with protein powders that can cause another series of issues that we want to avoid. But it can be definitely a key supplement. And you want to think of like protein powders as the supplement, right? It's supplemental to our positive, healthy diet. And so when we think about sourcing protein, yeah, that's a big topic. We could talk about hours about, protein sources, the difference between grass-fed, grass-finished beef and beef that's fed with like a corn grain diet, right? So there's a big difference in the amino acid profile, the nutrient profile. We could talk about that later on. But really getting just a variety of protein sources is kind of the key to keep it simple. Some people tend to be more plant-based, which is fine and can definitely work. And women over 40 can have a plant-based diet and still get results. But when you are more plant-based in the protein intake, it can kind of cause some logistical challenges, right? Because you have to have if you're going to do plant-based only, you have to have a really good variety of plant-based proteins that you're getting. And a lot of women over 40 just don't have the time to have that much thought that goes into their diet. And so, just having a good variety of like good animal proteins throughout the day, supplementing with whey protein is key. And that can be really helpful to make sure that we're getting that amino acid profile.
And of course, in a perfect world, we would eat all of our food, but just talking about the protein shake, it can be an option, but it's a complement. But it's also great because you can add a whole bunch of other stuff. Like, I'm busy, and so I love to be able to add my creatine and my glutamine and my all the other goody fun things, but also realizing I can't just only rely on that. But the important thing is getting in the protein. So just focusing first on, let's get the protein in,
Yeah.
number one. Then we can start to look at, okay, where are we sourcing it from? Can we start to exchange that for some other quality sources? Is there a best time to eat the protein?
Yeah, for sure. Timing for protein is key. If we said, hey, we're working with a woman and her goal is 140 grams a day, definitely getting that 140 grams in one meal is going to not be super effective. So, it's like she would have hit her goal, but still not got the result that she wanted, right? So timing is important, right? Your body, there's been lots of scientific studies on how much protein your body can actually absorb in one sitting. And this is where women and men differ pretty greatly is, men can absorb a higher serving of protein at one time, primarily because they have more muscle tissue to really help with that protein absorption. So, if you're a woman and your goal is 140 grams of protein, breaking that up into, 20 to 30 gram meals, 20 to 30, 35 gram meals is probably best and will help with absorption. So trying to break that protein up between 4 meals is ideal, and the timing on that is ideal. There's other tricks that you can do to help with protein absorption. Like one of the biggest hacks that I want every single woman over 40 to know is doing like a protein smoothie, protein shake right after they strength train is one of the best hacks to boosting your protein intake and also getting your body to absorb that protein, because it's like a magical time where your body's going to process protein and utilize it right away. So timing is really, really, really key to protein intake. We've talked about some of the benefits of protein. So far, we've talked about a little bit of the dangers of not getting enough protein. Let's kind of do a little deeper dive on that. So what are some of the symptoms that, tracking is key, right? Understanding where we're at with our protein intake is key. But let's say even before a woman's tracking her protein, what would be some signs that she might be seeing, maybe from the medical side, that says that you're like, you see them in the clinic and you're like, okay, this woman's just definitely not getting enough protein?
Some symptoms would be fatigue. That's a big one. Brain fog. Weight gain, which we've talked about, kind of that mid-belly weight gain. Joint pain, more injuries. Those are some big ones. And then on our blood work, we can even see indicators. We do actually check proteins. It's a different type of thing that we're checking metabolically, but it can give us some indicators that maybe we're not taking in enough, or if we are taking in enough, our body's not utilizing it very well, so we have to understand why. But also imbalances in our blood sugar, and then higher inflammation markers. So these are all things that might be from other reasons, but it can be clues. We need to start looking at your nutrition. Are we getting enough, and are we getting enough of the right things? And once we're getting it, is our body able to use it?
Yeah, that's huge. And I appreciate you bringing all those points out, because those are definitely things I see in the gym. And, it's like we can tell our, patients or clients that they need to get more protein, but it is helpful to kind of tie in some of the signs that they're seeing with, hey, this is like a signal that we still kind of want to work on getting more protein intake. Their increased risks of injury or their lack of recovery, right? They'll work out and, one of the keys that I know a client's not getting enough protein is they're sore for multiple days after the workout, after not even doing that hard of a workout, right? So not getting enough protein is a key symptom, or not having enough recovery or fast enough recovery is a key symptom to not getting enough protein. And then, like you said, that risk of injury, those other things are really key indicators that are like, hey, let's continue to work on that protein intake. So,
and to that point with the recovery with the workouts, we're wanting to build muscle. And so protein is key for that, and also recognizing that for women 40 and over, they're also having hormonal shifts. And so part of that is that their estrogen is dropping, subtly or not. But that is very involved in muscle building. And so if the estrogen is dropping and the muscles aren't building as well, then something we can do to support that outside of just, being on hormones, but if we wanted to support it nutritionally, is getting more adequate protein. So when we are building that muscle, we are giving it the building blocks that it needs so it can be more efficient.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's so helpful for especially the women that we are working with because, obviously you see the medical side, I see the strength and fitness side. But women, they're coming to us because they want results, right? They want to feel better. They want to have more energy. They want to have better recovery. They want more muscle tone. And getting enough protein is a huge foundation to all those things. So we talked about some of the symptoms that they see when they're not getting enough protein. Let's talk about maybe some of the benefits that they should start seeing when they do start getting enough protein. What are some of the you just talked about building more muscle tissue. What are some of the other maybe positive signs that, hey, I'm starting to get enough protein in, maybe when it comes to their satiety, their overall blood sugar balancing?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, you just said it.
Okay.
A big one is the stability of the blood sugar, and how we're going to feel that or experience that is going to be less hangry episodes, as we call it. So if you are feeling like you're having crashes, blood sugar is going low or low energy, when we're getting adequate protein, it may not even be something you recognize right away, but you're going to go, oh, I had natural hunger. So normal or natural hunger cues would be like, oh, it's time to eat. I could eat now. I could eat in 10 or 20 minutes. If I didn't end up eating, I would be fine. That's a big difference between I need to eat and I need to eat right now, and everyone's going to pay for it if I do not get a snack. Okay, so we're going to have less of those. And then the crashes. A lot of times we don't realize that, like, the fatigue that we have maybe mid-afternoon is really reflective of how we fueled our body hours earlier, whether it was the first meal or second meal or whenever we're eating. And so less fatigue, less sugar crashes. And we're going to see that reflected on the blood work as well. There's some optimal ranges for your glucose, your insulin, and your hemoglobin A1C, which is a 3-month average of your blood sugars.
Yeah. No, super helpful to get that information from your doctor. We've talked, I know this is kind of a touchy subject, but I think it's really helpful for women over 40 to understand, is, sourcing protein, right? Getting different we talked a little bit about varieties of protein. We've talked about some women really, for multiple reasons, maybe tend to focus more on plant-based protein for animal-based protein. But let's talk a little bit about sourcing protein. I know what I talk to my clients about. I'm a big fan if you can get animal protein in. It's going to be, for most women over 40, a better solution than plant-based protein. What are some of the things that you talk about sourcing when it comes to protein with your patients?
Sure. I like to meet people where they're at first. And so one is just a food log, because I like data just like you do. So understanding what are we getting in and when. And then the other is what's going to serve your body. So, if you want to eat certain categories of foods or not, so we can work within that. But practicing getting in more protein and then being open to getting in other categories of foods. Because in my office, I'm seeing people on a variety of different types of eating plans, but also a variety of different gut issues, gut microbiome problems, maybe food intolerances, food allergies. So I've really had the opportunity to get very creative. So all that to say that the more that we can practice eating different proteins and different categories, then we can match up with anyone with whatever their preferred type of eating is. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we still got to get it in. We got to get the protein in to serve your body and get to the goals that we want.
Yeah, I really appreciate that point. And I really like what you just said about meeting women where they're at and just kind of growing from there and building from there, because this isn't something that we're going to fix overnight, right? So a lot of women who are not getting enough protein, this is from lifelong habits, maybe focusing not on the right foods. So just, a little bit of progress, not perfection over time, and really being open to trying different strategies, trying different varieties of protein can be super, super helpful.
And the practicing part, I think, is important because if we immediately go from not having a lot of protein to saying, okay, well, now I need 150 grams a day, our gut is going to fight back. So there might be a little bit going on there. So practicing adding more is important, and then less of maybe what we don't need. And sometimes maybe with women it's we're busy, it's habit, it's not understanding how much we actually needed in the first place. But it's also telling if maybe we can't tolerate certain proteins, and that's important to know on the medical side so we can understand that better. It's easy to just say, okay, well, I can't tolerate this category or that category, so we just lean away from it and we don't ever revisit. But if we can revisit that, we can understand why and say, okay, is it a matter of just supporting you? Do you need digestive enzymes? Are we missing certain nutrients that can make that more helpful?
Yeah. And you just brought up a really important topic, and something we'll definitely revisit, not in this episode, but in future episodes, is not just getting enough protein, but really getting your body to absorb that protein, right? And there's going to be a lot of underlying issues, digestive issues that might be preventing a woman's body from actually absorbing the protein that she's eating. So yes, step one, getting enough protein, focusing on that, and then really working with like your medical professional to really do a deeper dive. Is my body actually absorbing the protein that I'm taking in? So I love what we're talking about so far. I love that, I think underlying, even though protein is a very important topic, I love that this conversation is really helping women to understand that sometimes the most positive, biggest changes just come from simple little habits that we can improve. So what's next about protein? Like, what else should we focus on?
Well, we touched on a lot. Okay, tracking is really important. Understanding how much protein a woman over 40 does need. Those are two big pieces that I think are missing. It's just like you need to be eating more protein. It's kind of like the doctor saying like you need to lose weight and eat less, move more. Well, I don't know what to do. So tracking and then trying to practice getting to that goal. Those are two huge things because then we're going to see better blood sugar balance. We're going to see better muscle gain. We're going to see better recovery. And then ultimately, whatever the goals are, if it's muscle gain or weight loss in the gym, we're going to see those things as well. So I would say tracking food and knowing what your protein goals are huge.
Yeah. So that kind of brings us to that 3-step foundational solution that women can start implementing today to really start seeing an improvement in their protein. So you talked about tracking is the first step, and really focusing on that 1 gram per day goal and kind of trying to spread that out through about 4 meals would be ideal. So that's number one. We talked about sourcing protein, just having a good variety of protein throughout the day. Don't just focus on, if possible, don't just focus on plant protein. You could possibly not just focus on animal protein, but try to get a good variety of protein sources. And then my secret hack for women over 40 to really help with protein intake as well as protein uptake is to make sure they're doing a protein smoothie, protein shake with like 20 to 30 grams of protein right after their strength workouts so that they can really boost that protein both uptake and intake throughout the day. So those 3 things foundationally will help women over 40 start improving their protein right away.
Okay, I love it. I'm going to go eat some protein.
Okay, great. Make sure to follow us on social media. This week we'll post some high protein meal ideas that you can start implementing tomorrow that'll help boost your protein intake.
If you have any comments, questions, or topics you'd like to hear about in the future, please comment below.